the Arctic Xtender VG. It's huge, it's white, and it's chilly. Sadly, it doesn't come with any polar bears, but it is supplied with a vertical GPU mount. My somewhat weak play on Arctic's name and referencing the Arctic only works because this sample comes in white. This case is also available in black. So let's move on to the size of the Arctic, which is indeed huge. 530mm in length, 530mm in height, 232mm wide. It's big, but the reason it's so large is because it can accommodate a 420mm cooler in the roof or a 420mm cooler in the side. The front is solid glass, as is the main window, so there's no option for putting cooling in the front. Let's take off some panels and show you what's going on inside. Single thumb screw, away comes the rather heavy glass panel. Top panel is just a push, and the rear panel, single thumb screw just like the main window, pull and away it comes. And humorously, the filter, which should be in that position, had actually slid to that position. But let's take out the filter and show you the enormous mesh openings. Also in the roof, out with that filter, and again absolutely huge openings. If you look at the rear, you will see again we have very large openings. And when you look on the inside, you'll see we have two 120mm fans at the rear. The case is supplied with three 140mm reverse fans for intake. Despite appearance, these are in intake, and the front glass is fixed. We have some tiny little screws there. I'm imagining if I was to remove those screws, I could slide the glass and remove it. I'm not going to touch them because the screw heads are painted and I have no need to do that. So I'm going to leave well alone. The configuration, the three 140s in the side in intake, these two in exhaust. Logically you put your cooler in the roof. Alternatively, if you're using an air tower on your CPU, Arctic says stick with the side fans in intake, add fans in the roof in intake, leave the rear fans in exhaust. And then we have the VG part, the vertical graphics riser. That's part of the package with this particular case, and it's mounted on a very solid power supply shroud. Around the back we have hook and loop straps for cable management and quite a deep channel for the cables to sit in. We have various grommets to keep things neat and tidy. We have a drive cage, which has two drive sleds. They pull out in the traditional manner, and we can easily install I have to say, they seem to secure the drive very nicely. Yeah, that looks good. Let's put the other drive in. I like that, that's neat. We also have there holes for securing screws, and indeed on the bottom, so if you want to secure the drives with fasteners you can, and to do that you use the accessory box. This is one of the neatest accessory packages I've ever seen with the case. It's got an actual latch. It tells you on the outside what's included, inside compartments, and you get the individual components including a bunch of these grommets and screws. We can install one SATA drive, two SATA drives, three SATA drives, and four SATA drives. It's worth noting you can't install the drive cage in that position if you have a particularly long power supply, but you can be absolutely confident the three SATA locations and of course M.2 storage will be available. The accessories include blanks for PCI Express output slots, When we look closely, we will see that we can, if we choose, remove the vertical GPU riser, and then we could instead install a graphics card horizontally along with another expansion card. Put it another way, in this orientation you're installing a vertical GPU and you have no option to install another expansion card. For most people that is no issue. The only thing they install is a GPU. That's the lot. That's what this Arctic extender is all about. Something else around the back that you may or may not have noticed. Right there. This bracket is the counterpart to this bracket, and the idea is you can install 120 or 140mm fans in the roof. However, they've supplied the case with 140s. If you choose to remove the 140s or move them to the roof, you might want to install 120s in the side, in which case you'll need to install that mount there, and then you can put 120s in the side. I'm glad that Arctic has included this accessory. The fact they've got it and they've tucked it out of the way is a good thing. Let's start building our test PC, and I'm using this ASRock Phantom Gaming X870E Nova Wi-Fi motherboard. Processor AMD Ryzen 9 9950X. There's a crucial SSD under the heatsink, and the memory is some G-Skill Trident Z5 Royal Neo DDR5 6000. That's straightforward, but what's not so straightforward is installing the motherboard in the case. Put it behind the riser cable, offer it up, and I can't drop it into place because of that. One of the supports for the vertical GPU riser is installed in one of the motherboard standoffs. So I first have to remove the riser, install the motherboard, but don't put a screw in that location, and then I can reinstall the riser. Taking the riser out, straightforward enough. In with the motherboard. And let's use this to support the motherboard, and then I'll just screw it in place and crack on with reinstalling the riser. And secure, and it's at this point I'm going to mention that the Arctic doesn't come with a paper user guide. You have to refer to their website. There's a barcode on the box and such like, so you can do it on your phone, but I much prefer a paper guide when you're doing something that's slightly out of the ordinary. Right, onward. Next I think it's time for the power supply.
Looking to buy a gaming PC? Then you need to visit Cyberpower PC. We'll help you with the best spec at a price you'll love. With us you get 5 years warranty, a lifetime of technical support, and systems built by experts. So it's no wonder so many gamers choose Cyberpower PC.
I thought the power supply would be really straightforward. Slide it into place, connect up some cables, move on to the cooler. But no, I decided to use this Corsair RMX 1000 shift power supply, which has the connections on the side. The reason I wanted to use it is purely because it's black in colour and it's got a decent rating, and it would be a nice contrast to the white case. However, so the power connection goes at the back and the cables go to the side, which means that the fan goes downwards. To install a power supply in this case, you remove the rear bracket like usual, which obviously is attached to the power supply, and you slide the power supply in from the back, and it sits on that skid, so it's lifted approximately a centimetre off the floor of the case. The connections go on the side, as you can see. Thing is, you've got this metal work. If I slide the power supply further forward, so let me show you, power supply is currently flush. You see here, we actually have connection points for the cables which would be obscured. The other thing, the cooling fan is on the underside like that. However, there is no filtered opening on the bottom of the case, it's solid. Now again, you have about 1 centimetre of clearance, so I can imagine air could flow along the floor and up through the power supply, but in this instance you do want to put the fan on the underside to draw air in. If the fan's on the top, it's hard against the power supply shroud. Either way, not great, but the shift type of power supply in this instance, not good. So I'm going to go with this Montec, which is a Titan PLA 1000 watt, and it's a platinum rated power supply. So it's high rated and absolutely tip top, and it has the connections in the conventional way on the end, which means that they are here. So I install the mounting plate, thus fan on the underside. I slide it in like so. Access to connect cables not the greatest, so I'll connect the cables outside of the case, install the power supply, hook everything up. With the power supply installed, we can move on to the CPU cooler, which is this Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 Pro 420 ARGB. 420mm being the key point here, but also RGB. And if I haven't mentioned it already, the fans in this case, they're also ARGB. So when we turn it on, we're going to have a light show. And this is what the cooler looks like. So the fans are already installed on the rather chunky radiator. We have an interesting looking pump assembly, which has this rather large cover which clips in place, and that has a downdraft fan that can keep the VRMs cool around the processor socket. What else? Oh yes, I've done some preparation by removing bracket from the roof, so we're ready to accept 140 fans up top. So I offer up the cooler. Kind of wish I could put my hand in the front where the glass is, but it's not the end of the world. Let's put some screws in. I've loosely installed the radiator and the roof, and it's clear this 420 cooler will easily fit inside this Xtender VG. It is truly a large case. Before I proceed, so I'm going to tighten up the screws, also using this tiny little tube of Arctic MX6 thermal compound, and then I'm going to put the pump body in place. I just want to show you this because I really like this detail. It's going to go like that. Look, it says Arctic, even though once this is in place, that'll be completely hidden from view. There's a part of me that almost wants to run it like that, and without this cosmetic cover. Anyway, I'm going to proceed. With the cooler installed, everything was looking good, but I ran into a snag installing our Palette RTX 5080 GameRock OC graphics card. And the problem is those hoses coming away from the cooler, which prevent you from installing the graphics card in the vertical riser, which is a key component of this case. I had to remove the pump, install the graphics card, and then reinstall the pump. Once I'd done that, everything went into place, but as you can see, it is incredibly close for comfort, and the hoses are resting on the graphics card. The finished PC looks good, and we're pleased with the way it's turned out. The huge Palette RTX 5080 graphics card pretty much vanishes inside the Arctic, and you can see that the intake fans are in front of the graphics card with no overlap. Also, the cooler in the roof of the case has plenty of space. We have to wonder about the way the cooler hoses lay along the graphics card, and of course we'll be keeping an eye on thermals in our testing as always. Behind the right hand panel, you'll note we have not reinstalled the drive cage in front of the power supply, and this of course leaves us even more room than we'd otherwise have. Nonetheless, it's very tidy, there's plenty of space, and everything looks good.
If you're looking for a new chair, then definitely go and check out boolies.co.uk. They offer a whole host of gaming and office chairs that come in a variety of different finishes and different colours.
For thermal testing, we're running a combination of Speedway stress test and Cinebench R23, and our PC is drawing 660 watts at the wall socket. The Ryzen 9 9950X is drawing 200 watts, and the Pallet RTX 5080 is drawing 340 watts. For the first test, we set all the fans at 1200 RPM, and the system sounds like this. The ambient is 23 degrees, but to our great surprise the CPU is running at 94 degrees while the graphics card is running at 65 degrees. That CPU temperature is certainly on the high side. For the second test we increase all the fans to 1500 RPM, which is distinctly more audible and sounds like this. CPU temperature is unchanged at 94 degrees and the graphics card is still running at 65 degrees. For the third test we increase the fans to 1800 RPM, which is decidedly noisy and sounds like this. The CPU temperature drops slightly to 91 degrees and the graphics temperature to 63 degrees. It's fairly clear something's not right here. However, using smoke to visualize the airflow apparently shows that everything's fine. The air rushes in through those side intake fans and then is shot out of the back of the PC and also up through the roof. Visually everything is fine, but those temperatures are clearly a problem. So to narrow down the issue, we remove the vertical GPU riser and we install the graphics card horizontally. Setting the fans at 1500 RPM, the system sounds like this. And now the temperatures look correct. The CPU temperature is 70 degrees and the graphics temperature is 63 degrees, which is pretty much what we'd expect. To our mind, this shows the true performance of the Arctic Xtender VG minus the VG. I'm not happy about those results, and more to the point, I'm somewhat confused, so I'm going to replace this Pallet GameRock 5080 with this MSI 4090. They are physically slightly different in size. There's not a lot in it, but I think it might be significant. 5080 going inside the bracket, 330mm in length. And this MSI is 320mm. Now I don't think that dimension is significant, so it's slightly shorter. In terms of thickness, which I think is going to be significant, from the back plate going forward, MSI is 60, Pallet is 70. Let's ignore the logo plate and let's go with the height of the cooler, and we're going slightly over 130, 132, 133. Oh yes, and that's 120. So I think that is going to make quite a difference. And I've done a little bit of experimentation with installing this VG mount because it's been in and out now a number of times. I'm going to install the graphics card in the VG mount. It's worth commenting that you don't get any options about the installation position. Plenty of vertical graphics risers that we've seen, you can move them in and move them out depending on how many slots there are. This riser has a single mounting point and it is triple slot graphics card, so I have no leeway. It goes where it goes. Then we offer up the assembly, clip the cable in place and slide. And that click was the sound of the back plate and the PCB just snicking under that plastic collar on the hose. And the power cable, which I didn't mention with the Pallet, but it's in a central location, which was essentially there and also slightly awkward. Here the power connection with the MSI is 3/4 the way along the GPU. The GPU is installed, it's upright, it's a really close fit to the AIO cooler. Let's run that and see how that performs in terms of cooling. Now the system has an RTX 4090 rather than an RTX 5080. It's drawing 760 watts at the wall socket. The processor still draws 200 watts, but the graphics card requires 430 watts. With the fan set at 1500 RPM, it sounds like this. The ambient temperature has dropped from 23 degrees to 21 degrees, so I'm going to add 2 degrees to each of the readings so we can compare like with like. The CPU is now 72 degrees, and this different graphics card is running at 71 degrees. In other words, the vertical graphics installation does work. It depends on which graphics card you're using. Before we get to my conclusions, let me just touch on pricing, which I haven't yet mentioned. Arctic has given us two prices for each version of this case. There's an MSRP and then there's a web store price, which they're confident, well, they're stating will be on their own web store, but in addition they're confident will be matched by Amazon and eBay. So I'm going to ignore the MSRP and go with the web store price that they're telling us is what you'll actually pay for this case. We have euro pricing including tax. We do not have British pounds. We do not have US dollars. In black, and there are two versions, a regular black and a mirror black. Without the vertical GPU mount, it's 145 euros, and with the vertical GPU mount, depending on which of those two you go for, 170 or 175 euros. In white, which is more expensive, without the GPU riser, 155 euros. With the GPU riser, as you see here, the most expensive of all, 185 euros. And we come to my pros and cons, and in a sense I wish I'd been sent the non-VG version of this case, as it would have made life considerably easier. But I was sent the VG, we've discovered things, we've done work. So my views are these. Pros, the good points. The Arctic Xtender is a large and smart case that's solidly constructed. Secondly, 5 ARGB fans are included in the price. And third, brackets are included so you can switch from 140mm fans to 120mm fans. Cons, the negative points. The GPU riser and the Arctic 420mm cooler you see here clash with our Palette RTX 5080. Clearly I can't say that you'll get a problem with other graphics cards, but you can see that our MSI 4090 is very close for comfort. So I think it's safe to assume with other graphics cards, you'll need to proceed with caution if you're using that vertical GPU riser. Secondly, a printed user guide is not included. The web guide is fine, but I like a book in my hand when I'm building something, particularly if it's a bit unusual. Thirdly, airflow to the power supply appears that it might be restricted. I had no problems, but just by eye, I have my concerns. The non-VG version of this case, which I don't have, but take out the vertical riser, and that is a non-VG, I would say is a worth buying and an 8 out of 10. This VG version that you see here, I'm going to go with worth considering and 7 out of 10. So there you go, 2 reviews for the price of 1. Do please check us out on TikTok and on the web. We're at kitguru.net.